Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Earnings Season. I'm Randy Rowe at RT Rowe.
And I'm Danai Hall at H Danai.
And this week we have
a guest.
Yeah, another guest. It's a guest show. Earnings
It's one of the faves, you know?
Yes. One of our faves. One of our...
One of Twitter's faves. One of everybody's faves.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah. We're ramping up the pressure.
I've heard about your threads from people who I didn't know use Twitter. So I talk to them every day in person. And somebody,
Wow.
so you know Miss Julie J on Twitter? I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I've seen her worksheets, her salary worksheets from people who don't use the internet.
How?
Yeah. That's reach.
Wow.
Because in every company in Jamaica, well, in every PAYE company in Jamaica, there's somebody who goes, how are you? How much is tax? How much is...
You calculate the deductions
and then
from
they start,
your
yeah,
tax.
and not just that, but that's the, especially on bonus time and around pay raise time.
Right.
Everybody started doing the dream
The
calculation. So if my pay was
increase.
6.4 million, I would pay X, and then everybody, maybe I'm just the only one, but yeah. With
Yeah.
that long intro, we have the one and only Miss Gilly J.
Jilly J.
Jilly.
Jilly J.
Jilly J.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. And you guys know this, me messing up. I've been doing that. That's my fourth one, but luckily the early ones are off mic, so no one has to hear those.
Yeah, that's me.
So
Jilly.
welcome, Miss
Thank
Jilly
you.
J.
Thanks for
Welcome.
having me, guys.
And I'll jump right into it. Tell us people who you are. Is your name Miss Jilly?
My name is Jillian Jackson. I work at Jamaica National. I'm the senior business advisor there. However, I guess I'm more popular in the streets as
in the
a
streets.
financial blogger. I think BOJ wrote a tweet the other day and called me the thread queen.
Oh, wow.
I write a lot of threads about things related to personal finance and financial literacy, like mostly mortgages, and then I'll talk about other loan types, other savings types, and just things going on in the market related to real estate or related to pensions, things that I come across as my day-to-day job as a senior business advisor. What that means is a senior business advisor does research for the group. So I research topics for the 21 different subsidiaries in the group. We're one of the largest mixed conglomerates in Jamaica, as you may know. So we have a remittance company, a bank, which is the most popular one that everybody would know about. We have a small business loans company, life insurance, auto insurance, or casualty insurance. And we have non-regulated companies as well. So I talk mostly about what's going on in the regulated space with the finance-related companies. And yeah, so I'll just start about those things. Otherwise, I'm involved in a number of things. I have my website. I just changed the name, so this is breaking news here. Financialsensibility.com, and that sensibility is CENTS. So
Say it again.
financialsensibility.com. And
there's no spell the fancy part.
all right, so it's financial CENTSIBILITY.com. So I used to be my name, JillianAJackson.com, but I changed it over. So it's the same site, just changed over to a new name because I wanted to be more focused. I initially thought I would blog about different things, and then I said, you know what, this financial literacy thing is something that I want to spend a little bit more time on. So I decided to change the name, and since I launched my blog in August, I've been doing a few sessions here and there. I did Rotary, there was a National Consumers League session held the other day where I presented on renting versus mortgage. At the Rotary one, I presented on the benefits of home ownership or the journey towards home ownership. And then I was on TV, on CVM the other day, talking about financial literacy in general and how we can improve financial literacy. So since launching the blog, it's been a number of different things, and that's led me to where I am today with you guys. To earnings season.
All
I
right.
mean, it's a little bit, I think it's going to be a little bit different from what you normally talk about.
I hope so.
Yeah, because you listeners probably will be thinking about, expecting you to be talking about stocks, and
Maybe.
I think it's a
Depends.
little change for them
It all ties in,
today.
though.
What's that?
It does
All
all
ties
tie
in.
in. Yeah.
It does tie in. We're
so-
talking about different asset classes, so
Yeah.
it does tie
So
in.
we've always spoken to people about, we've said, because we've started a lot of these conversations, and I on Twitter first, and now we're on,
We're on
earnings
here.
season. But one of the things we always talk about is the fact that investment is what we do, meaning investment, not investment in stocks, not investment in specific shares, it's just investment, whatever grows the value. So of course, I'm happy that you're talking about something different. I think people are hearing this right now, they're hearing it in a brand new year, so
Yes.
they are hearing this in 2020. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
And it's
Year,
one of the
everybody.
great ways to start the year talking about something that a lot of people will enjoy. So I think when people are hearing this, they already know going in that they're hearing a lot of things. You know people come with NHD. I like that you mentioned that you have a lot of the benefits of home ownership.
Right.
So I guess we can jump straight into that side of things. How do you? I mean, you say you spoke recently on benefits of home ownership. I know people say, "Oh, I wonder what you said there." I figure if there's a video, there's anything of it, a recording of it.
I kind of recapped it in a thread, I believe, but no, that wouldn't. No, actually, I wrote a long thread about the steps towards home ownership, so I touched on a little bit of that, but I went into a little bit more detail and gave some visuals at the presentation on, breaking it down step by step, what you should do when you're thinking about buying a home. I categorize it this way, three different steps. Thinking about buying a home, actually buying a home, and then owning a home. So 3 different ways of thinking about home ownership and what you would do in each of those steps. So, I mean, if you want, I could kind
That's
of
exactly
go
what
through.
I want. I was literally just going to set up for you, but she's way ahead of the curve.
All right, cool. So thinking about buying a home, as I said in the session, one of the things I said in the session is the journey towards home ownership is like you're taking a drive towards Ochi. You've never been to Ochi before. You have no idea how to get there. Thinking about buying a home is like putting the gas in the car. So that's the first step. You're putting the gas in the car and you're about to drive around Kingston and ask for directions to get to Ochi. That's step 1. So thinking about it is, you're putting some plans in place. You're laying the foundation. You're trying to figure out, how am I going to get to Ochi? All right, but you know that you need gas in the car. So you have to do some research. You have to put some gas in the car so that you can get there. Buying a house now, the journey of actually going through the mortgage, etc., is like when you're on the highway. And I say it like this because when you're on the highway, police can pull you over, your car can run out of gas. A lot of roadblocks can face you on the journey towards home ownership. So it's not something that is necessarily 1, 2, 3 yet because of how our practices are in terms of getting a mortgage. It's largely manual. We're not really there with the fully electronic systems like they have in more developed markets like the US. So it's a journey. And then, of course, when you get to Ochi, you have the home, you're going to figure out how you're going to party when you're down there. So, yeah. So thinking about it that way, let me talk to you about the first step. So thinking about buying a home, what do you need to do? You need to think about where you want to live. So location. It's true. Where would you want to live? And in thinking about that, I know everybody wants to live in Beverly Hills and Jacksonville and whatever. But if you look at the prices you're picking up the Sunday classifieds or going online, there are a few property ads, websites like the big ticket real estate agent, Century 21, Valerie Levy, Coldwell Banker, all of them. You can go on their site and they have a listing of houses all over. And you'll see what the prices are in areas that you think that you want to live, if there are any homes available. And that's probably going to lead into another discussion that we're going to have about it. No, not argument, discussion that we're going to have.
I'm rapidly enjoying this podcast more and more by the second.
So if there are any houses available for you to buy, and that's a big if. So if you find a house in Barbican, for example, to purchase, and you see that the price is $65 million, $70 million, $80 million, can you afford that? That's the first thing you have to think about. So on my Twitter and on my blog, there's calculators that you can go. There are lots of calculators that you can go and download and just figure out, put in your mortgage amount or put in the amount that you want to buy, put in the ownership amount. And then in my spreadsheet, I would make some assumptions that, if you're getting a $65 million mortgage, for example, you'd have to make a down payment of at least 10%. So you'd have to come out of pocket for $6.5 million for just the down payment. And then you'd have to think of another 10% in fees for a mortgage.
Well, you're rushing hard. All right, let's go again. So first of all, I like that you mentioned that there'll be calculators so people can check for themselves.
Yeah.
So I just pause in to say that if people check the show notes, they should see the links. There'll be links there. So I'll get the links for the calculators there. So people can listen to this and work it out themselves and
you can go and download it or just bring it up. It comes up as a Google Sheet and you don't even have to download it. I think you would have to because it's locked. But just download it, go to File, Download, and then put in what you want. You can change the interest rate, change the down payment, whatever you and your mortgage officer have negotiated in terms of the terms and conditions of your loan. You can adjust it accordingly.
But that also means for the regular people listening, because more people listen to this than people are doing through that process. So regular
if
people listen to this,
regular, so
if
what's
you're dreaming of
if you're
doing
dreaming of it
there we
and
go.
you want to have an idea of what it costs where you live, my suggestion is to start looking around. And if your goal is to do it in about 5 years, what you're going to do is think about the fact that the price is going to increase in the 5 years. So whatever your savings goal is, you'd budget a little bit for, you'd budget more for the price increasing over that period of time, and plan your savings goal accordingly for the down payment and the fees if you're getting a mortgage. All right, so determining what it would cost, as I said, you put in the price in the calculator and it will spit out a mortgage payment. That's one consideration. The mortgage payment isn't the only thing that you'd have to pay, but I'll go through what the rest of the things are in a bit. So when you're thinking about it, just make sure you understand what it costs to get the loan and what your monthly payment is going to be. So the down payment could be between 10 to 20%. I'd err on the caution towards the 20% so that you have a little cushion in case anything goes wrong on your drive to Ochi or your journey to get the car.
Okay.
All right. Another thing that's important is your credit report. A lot of people don't really take the credit report seriously right now because it's so new to Jamaica. The first credit reporting basically started in 2013. Act was passed in 2011. So people started to share data, or companies started to share data with the bureaus in 2013. And since then, I would say, I don't know the number off my head, but a lot of people have never checked their credit report.
Majority of the
Guilty.
people, I think.
A majority of people have never checked their credit
Guilty.
report.
Yeah, myself
And
included.
if
I've
they
never
don't-
checked mine locally. Yeah.
See, well, if you had no need to, if you're not planning to get any credit for anything, you probably wouldn't need to check your credit report. But if you do have that plan in the next 2-5 years, you should check your credit report to see what's on there.
I tell people to check it now.
You check it now. Yeah, check it
because
now.
you never know if
know.
something else is on it. They have sometimes. I've seen people complain about old things on it.
Yes.
Also, as we get more advanced in terms of tech and fintech,
Right.
we do have more advanced fraud, and you want to check to see if somebody has opened a credit card in your name.
And
All
it has
sorts of
happened.
things.
It has happened. Exactly.
And it is going to keep happening more and more just as we get more technologically inclined in the country. Yeah.
So you could be paying, you could have paid off a loan and they're still putting that information on your credit report. I've heard about that already, as you mentioned. And there just could be some erroneous information. Your address could be wrong, your date of birth could be wrong. Anything could be anything inconsistent on your credit report is going to hurt you later down. So it's best to get a credit report. There are 3 credit bureaus in Jamaica: Credit Info, CRIF, and Credit Information Services. So you can get a credit report free from all 3 of those once per year. You can email CRIF, I believe, and Credit Info and Credit Information Services, you have to go in person. That's the difficulty with that one. But if you have a notarized document, CRIF will accept it, and you can get your credit report emailed to you. So important step, so that you know what's on your credit report, because banks are looking at it. If you're going to a bank for a mortgage, there is not even one iota of doubt that they're going to pull up your credit report.
In fact, it's a requirement for every loan these days.
It is. Not only the banks, by the way. Do you know that Flow uses a credit report? All the telecoms who are coming on board, JPS, Water Commission, all of them eventually will be on board with the credit bureau if they aren't already. I know they're phasing in the utility companies, but Digicel, all of them should be on the credit report soon. So if you have a postpaid phone, or if you have cable or internet and you don't pay your bill on time, it's going to show on your credit reports and affect you when you're ready to get your mortgage or get any loan for that matter, not just your mortgage, your auto loan, any loan at all. So yeah, checking your credit report is important. Next thing is to put a savings plan in place. So now that I mentioned that you need 20% of the price of the house to get a mortgage, because you have to make a down payment and you have to pay another 10% in fees. What is your plan to get that 20%? If you're thinking about this for tomorrow, you might have it already. If you're like Randy and Dana, you have the money already put down.
No.
Speak it into being.
They don't do that for us. No.
But if you're like a regular Joe, like myself, you'd have to spend years putting together a plan, a savings plan in place.
Years. I like that you emphasize that part.
Years. So
Years.
as a matter of fact, I did a very, very scientific poll on my Twitter.
And her Twitter again for people listening is at
Miss Gilly J.
MSGILLYJ. So you
Miss
should see it in the
Gilly
info section of your podcast. But yeah.
Right. So I did a very scientific poll that asked how long it took you to get the house after you started thinking about it. And the most popular answer was 1 to 5 years. So most people take about 1 to 5 years to actually buy the house after they start thinking about it. So that might include them saving. Maybe they had savings before, but your savings goal is an important one. You should never get into an arrangement to buy a house unless you can afford it. And I want to emphasize that. So if you put the information in the calculator and it's saying that your mortgage is going to be $250,000, but you're only taking home 200, that's a challenge. If you're taking home 251, that is still a challenge. So on average,
taking home 500 is still a challenge.
it's still a challenge. It should be at a minimum a third of your gross income, your mortgage payment. So if you're taking home $100,000, you can only afford or you should only think about getting a mortgage of about $33,000, right?
Which gives you a house these days of that I don't think.
Maybe a $5 million house you could get for that.
33, 34.
That'd be very
A fresh. Well, NHD, you get NHD for
Right.
the first.
Yeah, with NHG, of course. That's what I meant. All right. So, yeah, we'll get into NHG in a little bit. But
Yeah, so go ahead. Keep going. I like this presentation. Allowing the people to get, everybody who missed it, get it. Go.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about the issue, definitely figure out your budget, how you're going to get there. Which stocks you're going to buy to get there, right, guys?
That help, you know?
Or how you're going to pay off some of your other debts. If you're in debt already, if you have other loans, it's a good time to start thinking about debt consolidation. If you have one of those high balance credit cards and some of these interest rates on the credit cards are up there.
A whole heap of people are looking towards this year. One of the goals, the
Get a credit
goals is
card.
always to reduce the credit card
Reduce
debt.
that debt.
Yeah. Reduce or remove. Get rid of the credit card debt. Yeah,
And I'm totally for that. My credit card companies hate me. They hate
I don't
me.
have a credit card, so.
Let me tell you why they hate me. I pay my bill in full every month.
No
They're
extra
not
money to
getting a
them.
dollar of
Which is
interest
right.
off
Oh
of
God,
me.
I love the people who can say that. I rate you guys
They
so
hate
much.
me.
I rate you guys so much.
And I collect my cash back and I collect my
points.
travel miles. I collect
Yeah.
all of those. And the annual fee is the only thing I have to pay to them to use the card. But I use the card as a way of getting cash back and getting, rewards.
You
for
truly
travel.
use your credit card as a rewards card.
Basically.
Right. I'm
Basically
not
increase
using
income.
it for debt at all. It's just to get the miles and get the points. So if you do have high credit card debt, if you're not paying off your bill in full every month and you are paying them interest, that's money that you could be putting towards your house. So one of the things you can consider, and by the way, I have to put my disclaimer in here. I'm not a licensed financial advisor.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a mortgage officer. I'm not here to provide you with financial advice, so you should always seek professional advice.
That sounds on brand
I'm
for this
just-
show.
That sounds so on brand. Everybody that comes there suddenly remembers. Yeah. You know what's funny to me? People used to see me before. Sometimes the same people, and they see me before me like, "Why you always saying that? Why you always tweeting that?" And then they come on the show, and I hear them saying it. I'm like, suddenly you understand the responsibility.
Look at that.
That's right. That you don't want to get into those emails. You don't want to get into those talk. Yeah,
You know
it's
what I find
better.
very funny though? It's the people that talking sense said it the most.
Always.
Like, so I
I
I'm giving you some
understand. Yeah,
valuable
yeah.
information right now.
And I think
I
it
know you
comes-
can take it in the wrong way.
yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I said it.
you,
Right.
you wear the mantle of telling people good advice, meaning that you have heard people come back to you and say, "It's so you did tell me," and you say, "I know I take my words very carefully. So I did not tell you, but because I work for them and say good enough."
Yes, when it doesn't work is when it's a problem. All right.
Yeah.
So think about consolidating your debt. If you're paying 34% interest on a credit card, they're unsecured loans for 20% or less. So if you have debt that is in excess of what you can get an unsecured loan for, you should think about refinancing that debt if it's something that you're seriously considering in terms of bringing down how much debt you have. That's a good segue into freeing up some space in your income to be able to afford the mortgage and to just put you in a place where you're now disciplined enough to afford taking that money out of your salary every month and putting it into a house if you so choose. And yeah, when you're saving, save somewhere where you won't be tempted to touch. So somewhere that's not too liquid or too easy for you to
Like
remove
what?
the
Like
funds.
what?
There are
I'm giving you so many chances to plug it. She's going so go.
Well, of course, there's stocks that's liquid, but I mean, there's stocks that you can. It's not as easy as just putting your money in a bank account and you have a debit card. You can pull it out anytime. So somewhere that you like an investment account, a fixed deposit, somewhere where you don't have a debit card that you can access the funds to easily, or you can just transfer it over to your account and spend it to buy shoes or go to ATI or whatever the young people do nowadays.
I couldn't tell you either on they look like.
I'm just kidding.
So.
All right. Yeah.
To pause you on that point, so you're pulling together the money because you say years, and that's a point that I know a whole heap of people
Miss.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's a
I
heavy
think
point.
House is
Yeah.
a tomorrow thing.
Yeah,
No, it's not. It's a
Definitely.
marathon, not a sprint to get a house. It especially in Jamaica. If I tell you how it works abroad, you'd probably more inclined to think that it could happen quickly, but because
it takes long in America also.
it takes longer here than in America. But yeah, it takes longer in America, but it definitely takes longer here because we have a number of regulatory requirements as a mortgage entity. The company I work for is the number one mortgage provider in Jamaica, so I understand mortgages from both buying a home. I was selling my parents' home about 5 years ago as well, and then of course I do a lot of work related to what's happening in the mortgage industry. So yeah, it can become complicated out here because of requirements, regulatory and business requirements and operations. But in America, they're more digital, so you can at least begin some part of the process electronically, and then you can go through the full thing if you want. And in the UK too, and other first world countries. But yeah. It's quite a process. That's why I mentioned, the police can pull you over on the road, and your tire can go flat, and all sorts of things happen. When I was buying my house, it took 6 months from the time I found the house and signed the paperwork till the time I got to move into my house. Yeah, it's quite a process.
Very much. She said 5 years was for her. Just reminding the podcast, the listeners, that she said 5 years was her number.
Yeah.
5 years, it can take a while. Sometimes the conversation I know that happens in some circles in terms of how to get housing started. The hardest part is usually the deposit.
The deposit. Once you get over that hurdle.
But that hurdle can be
steep. It can be monumental. But well, we haven't gotten to the other parts about the bubble yet, but it can.
The bubble.
If you're looking in Kingston, it's going to be hard. It's hard because the supply is much less than the demand, in my opinion, because I'm looking now too, and it's hard to find anywhere at all. Like the smallest piece of property, or let's say like a half acre in Norbrook or Cherry Gardens is easily $1 million or something. I can't. The typical person can't afford that.
Yeah.
So if you're looking a little bit outside of Kingston, or you're looking in the not so popular areas, you can find places. You can, but
Well, I saw the people's here off with some gems. I mean, outside of Kingston is the secret. It's like a Chico. There's lots of
big secret.
Yeah. Here's also, since I respect real estate, but it's not. I know it's a rich man's game in terms of an investment. So I'll say this: how I look at real estate market. Right? If you look at other countries and look at the things that matter to them, they're available in Jamaica, and we don't pay a lot of attention to them. The piece of land that you have in country and the slide hill, that's cliffside property. That's a lot of money. And it's not a lot of money now. It's a lot of money 20 years from now, when there's a lot less. So you have to think of it that way. We've learned because of the hotel industries to respect our beach or seaside, right? But you can still get places anywhere that is on water costs more.
Yeah.
Everywhere else in the world.
Everywhere else.
Yeah, and it does cost more in Jamaica too. Don't get me wrong, but you can get places in Jamaica on water for amounts that you wouldn't for less than $1 million. Much less than $1 million US. Much less. So you can get it for NHT amount. Some of the websites are open. You can go and search for it and you can see prices at this price, like what land is available at what price, and where in Jamaica it is.
I have a friend that bought in St. Anne $20 million on the beach, easily, quarter to half acre. And it's on the beach, so full access to the beach. I have another friend who bought a beautiful house. It was in Spanish Town. She can't even see the back of her land. It's so big. And she spent $19 million on it, which is 2 NHT mortgages and a little bit more, or $5 million more. So it's possible. You just have to think outside of the box, or outside of the box of Kingston.
That is the truth. That is a cheat code. People are talking about St. Thomas a lot.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's,
St. Thomas
it's
is
coming up
still-
with the highway and all of the
Yeah.
infrastructure that they're putting in there. So
I still think it's a great thing. I like to believe in being ahead of the curve, but I don't think the curve has truly caught up with St. Thomas. I think people
Not
are just
yet.
thinking typically. Yeah. There's
the
still
future.
places outside of the beaten path that are great. And if you think in real estate, if you think a long game, think 10, 15, 20 years down.
long
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
Or look at a more advanced country and see what they like
Mm-hmm.
and consider that to where you're going to be. And I get the story of there's this place in Mandeville, Manchester, where a guy built himself a nice villa, and part of where he built on the hillside, it blocked the people behind him, meaning so he's facing, he has the view, and they had a view, of course, but he's built and blocked it. And so he says he went to them to kind of compensate them because he lost the view, and the guy's like, oh, I didn't even notice.
Oh wow.
And he said, oh yeah, it's
Such a
thanks,
kind word.
because you blocked the breeze used to blow in
Oh.
and bother me in his house. In Jamaica, we don't.
We
We
don't
just don't
value-
really care a lot about a lot of
No.
those things. Yeah, chop down the whole heap of bush them.
We're
Nah,
getting
it's
there
it's just-
though. I think we're getting there. More and more people are becoming interested in real estate. Similarly to how interest in the stock market is growing.
Yeah.
I think interest in real estate is also growing. I don't have any anecdotal evidence to prove that, but you know.
Yeah, because that's one thing that plagues the industry and plagues, like, you're somebody
yeah,
who's
I'm
very
gonna-
good with data, so you know.
I'm struggling here. America has an index, a housing index called the Case-Shiller Index, and they've been tracking housing prices. I feel like it's the 1700s, since the 17 or 1800s.
Wow.
The index goes way back, and Jamaica has no housing index, so there's no way to track it. BOJ did something once where they had, I think it was a 2008 to 2017, so a 9-year period. They looked at that, and then nothing else came
Nothing
out of that.
after
So
that, yeah.
it's hard to find data to track a lot of these things, and as a data person, it's stressful.
It's frustrating for me because I know that they have the data.
They have
because
it.
you see things that come off it, so they
Yes.
must know. And like, to build a house, there has to be a permit granted. There has to be a receipt done for that permit, and there's a record of all the receipts. So there is data there.
And
Just
I said that I had a
One is it
conversation
about-
on Twitter with a minister on this, because somebody raised a question and I was like, "There's no data on how many housing starts we had," and he commented and asked for suggestions, and I applaud him for that. It was Minister Green, I think, and he asked for suggestions on it, and it was Pernell Charles, and I said, the land agency, the National Land Agency, they have to issue permits, they have to do surveys of everybody's property, the titles office has to title everybody's house. I mean, the data is there, so
and it's known that it's there, but I don't know. It's just putting together. I have this run into the same problem all the time with salaries. You cannot answer this
yes.
question in
You
Jamaica.
can't.
No one can
What's the
say
average salary?
what is the average salary of a Jamaican.
Thank
In
you.
fact, you can't even say what is the average salary of a person who pays PAYE. But they pay PAYE, so somebody must know.
how much exactly.
somebody must know.
I
I was
ha-
looking at this myself too, because I was
I have paid money.
yeah,
I paid money for data. I ended
Yeah.
up paying for
wow.
PIOJ. I think it's not PIOJ. I paid
Yeah.
for somebody to scan that. What you pay for is for them to scan pages in a book, and they send you pages of the book based
sells
on
you the
like
book.
a kind of a survey that they kind of do. I think it was related to some, but that's the closest you can come to it. So you can know like what the average.
Jeff did a survey
Yes,
years
yes,
ago.
yes, and that's what you can get. You can get what the
Jeff.
average. Say you're a computer, an IT assistant, as long as that's the name of your role. So the average salary for an IT assistant is, let's say, 1.8 million Jamaican, right? But on that same page, there's also IT help desk assistant, and also help desk assistant, and then IT assistant, and all of them have a different number.
So you find average of averages and hope.
No, but
I hope it works.
this is a scan of a PDF. This is a scan
Oh,
of
yes.
a photocopy of a PDF, sent to me.
I
that I
wonder
paid
how
Oh
this
my
works.
God.
so there's nothing I can do other than write it down in Excel.
You make it in
It's
PDF, you print it, and then
frustrating
you
as we need to
photocopy
pay
it.
money.
Wow. Yeah, the salary information.
Wow.
I think
It's terrible.
Statin did a survey the other day. I think they're trying to do some salary surveys. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
They do
but-
one every few years. I've read them. This is part of it that people don't know because I don't talk about it. But this is where I do a whole heap of data, and I realized that I seen because Danai has the PIOJ background.
Oh,
So yeah, so
You know what's spoken about that.
really?
we have never released that episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
breaking news.
Well, people know that there's stuff that we don't put out. But that is one of the frustrations that I have because there's so much. Once you have the data,
Yeah.
so much becomes possible. You
And
know
you
how
can-
to target things immediately.
And it helps to write policy. It helps to give the direction of businesses, country. The whole country can have a policy direction on housing targets if we know where we're starting from, but if you don't know where you're starting from, you can't know where you're going. So yeah, one of my pet peeves as well. We share that one.
Yeah, it's painful. It's painful, and I'm happy that they're doing stuff about it. I know there is the government information page. Like you should be able to go to one page and get a lot of stuff, and it's a start. I like it. It's a start. So I'm happy for that. But boy, no reach nowhere yet.
And yeah, big up to Statin. They do have a lot of information, and PIOJ too. I read the ESSJ, the Economic and Social Survey. As soon as it comes out, it's like my earning season. As soon as it drops, I'm there at PIOJ ready to get it.
I think and also good in that department, Blue Dot.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was about to big up whichever entrepreneur is quietly realizing that if they can collate and sell this data, people will buy it.
We've spoken about it. Imagine, I've always said to Randy, imagine a Jamaican version of Bloomberg, and I always thought Blue Dot would be perfect to set that up. And just plug into Bloomberg and sell them something.
Yes, big up to Blue Dots. Larren? Yes, Larren.
Yeah,
from
Larren.
Blue Dots.
No, big up Larren. Larren, when are you going to come on the podcast, sir? Larren said, what's earning season? Larren know me personally, you know.
Yeah.
What's earning season? Big up Larren.
Yes,
The dot on Twitter. Make sure I drop that in the show notes. Top CEO of Blue Dot Consulting. It's a data and research company. I'm sure I'm mangling it. Larren, come on the show and tell the people you do properly. Yeah, big up Larren.
Yeah, they're awesome. All right, so we're back to deciding to buy a home. So that was just thinking about buying a home. So if you didn't pick it up by now, it's not as easy as buying something liquid like a stock, because you have to do a lot of research and you have to put some time and effort into it, right? So when you decide to buy the house, now there's something important I want you to think about. And remember, I'm not a lawyer, not a financial advisor, but there's something called joint tenants versus tenants in common. And this is going to be the difference in having a happy relationship at the end of a mortgage with somebody and having a sad relationship at the end of a mortgage with somebody. Joint tenants means if you and I bought a property together, if I die, the property goes to you.
Correct.
Everything is yours.
Correct.
If we have tenants in common, I can will my portion of the property to whoever I want. So my kids or my sister or whatever. So I have 50% ownership and you have 50% ownership. So as much as people can be in love and they say, nothing gonna happen to our relationship and everything is gonna be fine, things can happen. So I'm not giving any advice, but I'm just saying tenants in common is something that you should consider if you're entering into purchasing a home with somebody, especially if that somebody is not your husband or not your wife, or not somebody that you absolutely trust, because anything can happen to you.
It's a brand new year. Somebody right now is looking very studiously at the radio or the speaker and not looking at their partner. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I know. My
put
friend
on
is
the ring and stop waste
time.
time.
Encouraging one of my friends when I said it to her, what are you encouraging? And I was like, anything can happen.
Yeah, 2020. Don't make him waste your time. Ring.
I won't say that. But yes, so something to think about. So your lawyer is going to ask you when you're ready to sign up all the documents whether or not you want to do joint tenants or tenants in common. Research it for yourself before you decide to buy a house to figure out which one you want to do. But understand that one means you can will your property to somebody else. The other means you can't.
Which one is which?
Joint tenants means you can't. So if it's a right of survivorship. So if you survive and I die, you can get everything. Everything is yours. But if you do tenants in common, it's
always split, and it goes to your estate. It goes to the estate of the person.
Right. Precisely.
A friend of mine had a home, still has. I think it's a family thing. I'm trying not to give details. Where it's more than two people.
Okay.
And they own, meaning the ownership of is split that way. And as they die, it reverts to whoever is left alive.
Oh, so that's
and then the
joint
last
tenants.
person, it reverts to their next of kin. Yeah.
So that's joint tenants. Yeah.
I see all the estate matters in my work.
That's how you set up your own red wedding in your family.
Okay.
Red wedding. Wow, Randy. Wow. You got really dark here.
I hope I'm at home when I'm listening to this.
All right. So, thinking when you decide now to buy the house, another thing that you need to think about carefully is whether or not you have access to an NHT benefit. And I'll just talk a little bit about NHT right now.
Big thing, yeah. Please.
All right. If you currently contribute to the NHT, i.e., when your salary statement comes, you see a deduction on it that says NHT. 2% of your salary is deducted to go towards the National Housing Trust. That 2% that's coming out of your salary entitles you to an NHT benefit once you've been making contributions for 52 weeks. So if you're a local resident and that's coming out of your salary and going straight to NHT, or you choose to walk into NHT or send the payment directly to NHT without it being deducted by your company, you have to do that consistently for a period of 52 weeks. It doesn't have to be 52 consecutive weeks, but 52 weeks.
Can you pay it all at one time?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'd have to double check on that one.
Okay.
Check on that one. I believe so. But once you make 52 contributions or weekly contributions, if you're a local resident, and 104 contributions if you're overseas. So if you're a Jamaican living overseas, you still have access to an NHT benefit.
Yeah, let's say that one again, because I get a lot of DMs about that. Again, if you're in foreign.
If you're in foreign,
there we go.
A Jamaican living overseas, i.e. you have a TRN number, you have an NIS number, and you live overseas, you still can access your NHT benefit to build a house in Jamaica.
Tell people what the benefit is.
The NHT benefit now, if you're between the ages of 18 and 65, you have access to $6.5 million if you're a single person. If you and somebody else want to do it, you have access to twice that, so $13 million at a very, very low interest rate. Of 5%.
There we go.
The market interest rate is about, when I looked at the data from BOJ, the average rate was 7.8%. So it doesn't seem like a huge difference. When I did the calculation with the rate of 8.5%, which was the average rate at the time, I did this calculation. And there's a whole thread about this on my Twitter. 8.5%, the difference between 8.5% and 5% will mean you're paying $5.4 million in interest over a 30-year period. So if you don't have NHT, then you're paying a penalty of $5.4 million as a single person and twice that if you are buying it with your partner, right? So having an NHT benefit is beneficial if you're trying to pay the least possible mortgage that you can pay. If you work for a company that has other benefits, other mortgage benefits, like I know some companies have like 1% mortgage, 2% mortgage, like there are companies that offer it as an incentive. Not many, but there are a few out there. If you do have access to a company or you work for a company that does have a benefit on top of your NHT benefit, you're golden right now. So it's a good time for you to think about purchasing a home if you have that option. If certain conditions are met, and I'll go through what those conditions are. But thinking about buying a home is something that's important if you think that if you want to do it for the purposes of housing your family. If you're trying to do it for an investment, there are some other considerations, whether or not you'd be able to rent it out for what you're paying in the mortgage. That's a consideration as well. And that's not a straightforward answer. I have a whole topic on that as well. So yeah, if you're ready to buy a home, think about whether or not you have an NHT benefit that you can use towards the purchase of that home. So if you have the NHT benefit and your home is in excess of the $6.5 million as a single person, or in excess of the $13 million if two people are buying it together, you have to go to the market for the rest, right? So there are banks and building societies traditionally that you can get a mortgage from. There are other financials, but traditionally people go to a bank or a building society. Number one bank is JN, number one building society is VM. All right, so the typical market rates, the average rates at BOJ mentioned was 7%, but when I did this, it was about 8.5%. So I'm going to work with the 8.5% for the sake of, if I have any examples to give you, I'll use it. 8.5%, 30-year loan, 10% deposit. That's what we're working with. All right, so if you're going to get a $15 million property, assuming all of those things, you're making a 10% down payment, and that's $1.5 million. You're going to have to pay another $1.5 million in fees. You're going to get 6.5 from the NHT, and the balance, which is the difference between your down payment and the $15 million, is $7 million. So the $7 million is what you're going to have to finance in the market. The total mortgage for all of that with the NHT payment and the market is, for a single person, is $88,000. So If your rent is more than $88,000 and you can afford a $15 million property, then or afford the down payment and the fees, then you can consider purchasing a home.
Okay, because you're comparing obviously the monthly rental cost to the.
There are other considerations, but if you're that's step one. If you're paying more rent and you can pay in mortgage, it's step one into thinking about buying a house. There are other considerations in, as I said, being able to afford the down payment. If you're doing it for investment purposes, can you get more on the down payment and the down payment and the money that you're going to spend on fees? Can you get more investing that over time, or can you get more from putting it in real estate and getting 5 to 6% on average per year?
No, that's a
as your
major
return?
consideration. You drop that one quick. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's another thing that happens. A lot of people, I have one specific friend I'm thinking about, and I'm listening now to, and he does that. He does homes.
Yes.
He does flips homes, makes
Okay.
money off it. He'll do it. He'll tell me for 2 years, make a 2 million. Like and sometimes he'll live in somewhere for 2 years and then move the usual stuff. So he does that. And he cannot fathom why I would do stocks. I'm always, every time me and him link up, him always and me say, yeah, but watch, you know. All right, you put in a new place, and it's the same thing that you're saying is a lot of what I hear him speaking about, which is, you know, all right, you got heavy upon the deposit because sometimes you get in pre-constructions,
Yes.
like the lowest price.
Right.
There's some escalation, but then sometimes him sell it even before it finished. So
okay.
him get like the difference between escalation, and he's doing all of that. And
So it takes a lot of research. I bought my house pre-construction, so it's now up 30% from what I bought it. If you buy a house that can be flipped in one of those golden areas, you can make a decent amount. You can make a serious amount, but you have to take the time to understand, just like stocks, and do your research and work and make sure that you have capable people that are working with you, a good lawyer. Most importantly, I'll get to that when you're actually in the process of buying a house. No, you need a good lawyer to make sure that you're not taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Let's put it in nice terms. Taken advantage of.
We've all watched the news for
Yeah.
the past 2
Sounds
years.
good.
We've all watched the news. And you're right when you say that it can be a good investment if you do the research.
Oh, definitely.
I have this thing, I'll put this in the show notes, but it's an ad I have from, I think, 2016 in the Gleaner. And it is 2009.
Wow.
And there's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom apartment with a view in Norbrook. Gated community, Kingston 8. Guess how much it costs? This is
Wow.
2009.
I think you mentioned it's already. So
20, my guess.
No, 23. So you're so close. You must be in the industry.
Or something.
23 million for a 3-bedroom, three
And-
bed, 2.5 bath apartment in a gated community in Norbrook 10 years ago.
The golden question is, what is that apartment worth today?
Exactly.
I know it's not 23.
No,
It's
well,
nowhere
you
near
can tell
that.
us what you think. Easily 100, no?
No, probably not 100. Maybe 50, 60. I don't think it would be all the way up to 100. It depends. How many square feet? do you say?
It does not say how many. Okay, here's I guess in the same complex or the same realtor was trying to sell it. Another one which is
Okay.
Kingston 6, 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom,
Yeah, but-
townhouse, pool, tennis court, 31 million.
That would have been a great time to buy a house. Interest rates were higher, much higher. I was looking at this the other day. The average, I just told you the weighted average interest rate was 7.83, I think, up to September of 2019.
2019.
10 years ago, 2006, so about 13 years ago, 2006, 2007, the weighted average was 23%.
Wow. I was thinking maybe 18, 19.
23%.
But no, because it have been older mortgages contributing to that. Wow.
Right. So 23% interest. Interest rates are at the lowest they've ever been.
Yeah.
So similarly to what's going on in the investment market, now is a good time to think about purchasing a home because of the fact that interest rates are so low.
And locking in a rate this low is amazing. Yeah. I mean, my parents' generation would have had to lock in some of them wicked rates. Yeah.
My mother would have dreamed about an 8% mortgage or a 7% mortgage.
And tip to any of the people who are paying it for a while, and maybe under, I am definitely not an expert in that area, but I can tell you this just from knowledge of the numbers. If you have a mortgage for maybe the last 10 years and maybe the payments are stressing you, chances are you can refinance right now. Yeah, you can refinance. You can refinance in a way where you get to have a lower monthly payment
Or lengthen the period.
lengthen the period, and depending on the situation, they can actually also give you cash in hand. It would be an increase on it, but oftentimes the rate that you're coming down from is so high that they
Yeah.
can actually give you an extra loan and you still end up paying less every month than you pay currently.
There's nobody that should be paying 20% for a mortgage right now.
All right.
Yep.
That's what I held out from
that
saying.
you're paying.
Yeah.
I would advise you, even though I'm not a financial advisor, I would
Yeah.
advise you to go and look into it and possibly think about refinancing.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and yeah, you're paying 200 grand now. You might drop to 100. 100. Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
100 grand every month, free up.
So that 88,000 a month was for a single person. If you and somebody else can buy a home together, the monthly and use your NHT mortgages, both of you have NHT benefits. If you both use them, it's $73,000 a month for a $15 million property. I know those are rare. I found one or two when I was looking for this presentation. I found one or two. One new, like Oaklands, there were some about $15-16 million, and Oaklands is pretty popular. It's on Constant Spring Road. I don't know if it would go. I found one there, but I don't know if it would, the availability, if it stayed long on there, but I saw it there.
But stuff like that moves
very quickly.
Yeah.
And then there's the new complex across from the stadium that's going up.
Yes.
They're studios, but $15 million. So
But
there's
$15
something.
million. Yeah. In
Right.
fact, I don't think those are going to last either.
Probably not.
And those NHT?
No.
They're not?
NHG properties, I don't think.
Ruthven, I think.
Ruthven is the one
Ruthven,
that's
yeah.
coming up, and I haven't seen any prices yet. I've been looking.
Yeah. But there is one benefit. I think this is a tidbit I do know, that if you are getting to buy in an NHT built scheme, then you can get a mortgage fully.
Yes. So
yes.
Yeah, regardless of the amount.
Right.
Yeah.
How that works is that, I guess I skipped over that a little bit. How that works is that they have a rating system. So if you want to get an NHT house, and the benefit of doing that, of course, is that NHT houses are way cheaper than what is on the market. Their mandate is to build affordable homes, and most of the developers right now, they're not interested in building affordable homes. They're interested in capitalizing on the demand
In the market,
and
correct.
putting the price accordingly. So NHT is tasked with building affordable homes. So there's a process that they have that they want to give it to people who need it the most. They have a rating system, and based on your circumstances, they would give you points based on certain situations, and then assign the houses accordingly. So that's how they do it. And NHT actually has interest rates. I said 5%, but they do have rates as low as 0%. So you can, if you qualify for an NHT mortgage and your weekly income is $14,000 or less, and you can qualify otherwise, then your interest rate would be 0%. Your monthly payment would be $14,714 for that type of loan, for a $4 million loan. So you get a lower loan amount, but if you can find anything for $4 million, you can get an NHT benefit at as low as 0%.
I was wondering how certain income affords a home, but no, that makes sense to me.
But it's not across the board, right? So that's why it's important to think about like housing starts and where the population that earns a certain amount lives, so they know where to target.
Yes.
I think the Housing Association of Jamaica does a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just blind data, so people just
Blind.
kind of just working off constituency lines or an opportunity here. So hey, if you get a chance to do it, yeah.
They just find something and say, build here. There is no... So they have a number of listings on their website. If you want to see what's under construction right now, they have all over the country. St. Catherine, St. James, they have a list of all of the properties that are being built now. They have Ruthven Phase 1. I guess there's another
And those
phase
links are
coming
in the show notes again.
Yeah, you'd be
You
able
will
to...
share them with me, of course, yes.
For sure. They're
Okay.
easy to find. NHT is good, a very good thing to use. If you're paying for it, if it's coming out of your salary, utilize the benefit if you can. Do the math and figure out if it's something that you can afford, and then start doing your research and figuring out where you want to live, what the prices are, etc. So, sorry, I was recapping a little bit. Looking at your monthly payment over time, yes, it may seem high initially, and those first couple of years, I'd say 3 to 5 years, it's kind of rough because you're paying for something that's a third of your salary where you didn't have to pay for it before unless you're paying a similar rent, etc. And over time, generally, your income will increase, but your mortgage payment remains relatively stable. So your income is going up, your mortgage payment is remaining stable, so you have a bigger cushion over time between how much you're paying for the mortgage and how much your income is. So that's why it's a long game, and it's something that you have to be patient with. So I know somebody that just finished paying off her mortgage. She was very excited about it after 22 years, and she lives in a nice area, and now her house is worth about $100 million, and her mortgage payment at the end of the mortgage was less than $40,000 because she started off with a high back then high payment, and over time it became with inflation that probably was even less.
And principal payments.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So when you actually have the mortgage, your principal payments, pay off the principal. If you have any lump sum payments coming in, you want to get down the principal as fast as you can because you're being charged interest on the outstanding principal. So when the loan starts, you're paying most of it. Say if it's $100,000, you're paying like $98,000 out of it towards interest. If you're paying more towards principal, they're charging you interest on a lower amount. So you're generally going to be paying less over time. So the more, and a lot of mortgage companies, especially in America and in Canada, they don't allow you to make down payments at all. The ones in Jamaica, they'll allow you to make it, I think it's once every 3 months or once a year. There's some stipulations on how frequently you're allowed to pay it down, because of course they have to balance their cash flow and their interest payments. So if you can make the down payment and just figure out what the rules are and make as much of a down payment as you can. So I have the real estate index I was telling you about. It's in 2008, it's an index, so it started at 100, and based on the research that was done in Jamaica, by 2016, so over 8 years, it was at 150. So real estate prices increased by 50% over 8 years.
Wow.
So, and that's not per annum. That's 50% over the period. So if you annualize it, it would be like 6-7% or something a year. So, if you can benefit from that, and if you do pre-construction, or if you do find a property that is you think is undervalued and you can put some sweat equity into it and fix it up, then you'd be getting much more than that. So this is just average prices. So you can be above average if you do the research and put the work into it. And mortgage rates, again, I was telling you a while ago, 20 years ago, mortgage rates were at 25%, 30%, as high as 30% in this looks like 2001, 30%, the weighted average rates. Now they're down to as low as 7%. And
8%, and that's pushed heavily by the increased competition.
Yes.
In the market, increased competition.
So 10 years ago, most commercial banks weren't even interested in mortgages because of what they were getting from government paper. Now that they're getting lower and lower returns from government paper, they have to go back to the business of lending to get interest. So that's pushed more people into the mortgage space, or more of the banks into the mortgage space, and brought the rates down, which is good for the consumers.
Definitely.
We want lower rates because, the difference between, there's another tweet that I have about, it's the difference between 7 and 8% interest. So just 1% interest, the difference is 1%, and that translates to, over 30 years, $2.4 million. So if you want to save and pay the lowest interest rate possible, right?
The difference between 7 and 8%, which is
So if your bank is charging you 7%, if one bank is charging you 7 and one bank is charging you 8, if you take the one that's charging you 8%, you're paying $2.4 million over the life of that loan, more in interest. Just the difference between those two rates. So you want to get the lowest rate possible, and you can probably even negotiate with your lender. If you know that there's other rates out there, negotiate with your lender to get a better rate. Yeah,
that's something that a lot of people don't know. You don't have to take the first rate you give them. Sometimes you shop around. Sometimes
you shop around. And one thing about shopping around, though, if you this might not apply for a mortgage, but for other loans, just while you're there, if you apply 4 different credit facilities in different financial institutions in too short of a succession. So if I go to Bank A today and then Bank B tomorrow and I'm applying for loans all over the place just to figure out what the rates and things that I'll get, it affects your credit score negatively. It will actually bring your credit score down.
So each credit check is counted against your credit score.
Right.
Yeah, because it's measuring. It's saying that you're seeking out a lot of credit.
Right.
Okay.
So it's better to shop around by looking at the website or calling one of the representatives. Don't actually apply for a facility just to figure out what you're going to get. It's not advisable to do so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's another thing, because you've seen it in America, so it's the same thing in Jamaica. As the industry gets more and more technology inclined, as well as technology to enter our processes more, we're seeing where people are giving you an easy chance to apply. So we also need to remember that you need to be careful with that actual application, because the application that hits your credit counts against your credit. So you don't want too many. Act when you're careful is what you're saying.
Right.
Do the research. And your research does help, because you put a lot of stuff out there for people. Yeah.
I hope somebody is finding the tools useful. I know one person messaged me and said, because of what I've been tweeting, they've actually started the process of becoming a home owner. And other persons have said, they're really starting to think about the home ownership now. So I think the message is getting out there. I'm helping with my part with financial inclusion.
Yeah.
So.
And it's Jamaica. This is the Jamaican dream. Own house and car.
This is the age of everybody. Well, my Twitter. Everybody's talking about generational shift now, millennials. Everybody's talking about getting into owning a house. We see our parents. We always we complain about they had a homes, and we're looking at the market. We're saying, what's going on here?
Yeah, but the reality of
don't
getting
really know what's going on here.
Yeah, the reality of getting is rough.
It
Yeah.
is.
Well, we can touch that. I don't know if we can. You said to me earlier when we were starting that that you think you're gonna change my mind around mortgages. So I tell you to that. Well, let me. Maybe I should let you start. Tell me how you'll change my mind. But I'm wondering if I'll bias it by saying what I think about
Right.
mortgages.
So that's where I want to start. So tell me what you think about mortgages. Why is it that I should not get a mortgage?
Oh, I think people who can afford a mortgage should get a mortgage if
Great.
it is in line with their life.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I always have.
So we're on the same page.
Yeah, that's what I said. People might not realize, however, there is a difference now when I find a lot of people running into it. The why. I'm running to get a house, and there is a thing amongst maybe not Dana's generation, but my generation. I'm 33. We have, you get the house no matter what. You're not a man until you get the house. You have to turn your own key, you get me? Yeah, I mean, I was joking with you a couple episodes ago, Dana, about that you're cruff. If you still live with your parents, right?
Gosh.
But it's a Jamaican mentality that we have, right? So you have to get your own home, and so people push for it. But you look at the reality of it, and I'm using the calculator from Miss Jilly J. It's from the set of website. I'm going to make sure people hear it.
Financialsensibility.com,
There
and
we
that's
go.
sensibility with a C, CENTS,
There we go.
IBILITY.
And all the links are in there. But I'm looking at it, and you have a nice example that you use here, where if you're getting like a house for 21 million, and so you say you pay down the 10%, so 2.1 mil, and you said for safety 20.
Yes.
Because you never know you'll have to have the fees.
The
You never know
fees.
what
I'll
it
go
could be.
thll go through what the fees are in a sec if you want.
Oh no,
but-
go. Well,
No,
I'll do
definitely.
it in time.
We
but-
love those fees.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Good.
We love including the fees, because people always, we look at a house 21 mil, and then that's to be all in the.
Yeah, I know. And when I was buying my house, there's nowhere you can find that information. There's some websites that will list some of the fees and give you an idea. There's nobody that had a calculator or anything, and then it's difficult information to pry out of many companies. Because, it's fees. Nobody wants to talk about fees.
Yeah, nobody ever wants to speak about it.
So
And I
good
don't
thing we have
get
Miss
why.
Jilly J.
Because it's not like it doesn't make you any less unique. Everybody has to pay the
Everybody has
fees.
to pay,
Yeah.
They have different fees, but I mean,
I think the reality is that they just know they know what it looks like. Because if you look at it the way I looked at it, because I think why I got famous for that no mortgage thing is, you look at the way I look at it is that you look at what the deposit requires, and it can turn you down. Yeah, I remember I looked at it the very first time I calculated. I go, oh, I'll never have a mortgage. Boom. I literally said that. Like, math class, Mr. McDonald math class, he was teaching us about mortgages at Arden, and he explained it completely. And I had the calculator out,
Randy,
and I did that, and I go, oh, I'll never get on then. Literally, high school.
you are carrying this baggage for far too long.
Yeah.
Let
but
me
so
relieve you.
I've changed in that I no longer say that. No, I'm saying I'll definitely get a mortgage, because there's no way I'm spending my money like that. So the bank has to pay for it.
The
I'm not
bank,
doing it.
yes,
Yeah.
using other people, OPP,
Oh, yeah.
or OPM, sorry, other people's money to pay for your house.
Uncle Lee Chin's way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, leverage. That's what that's called. So you use leverage to purchase your house. You ask the bank to give you money to purchase your house, and then you gain from it over time. You pay them interest, yes, but there are ways that you can make back what you're spending, especially if you're doing it for an investment purpose. If you're doing it to live in it, you need a house to live in. You need somewhere to live. So my argument to you, well, no, not my argument. My statement to you, if you say, okay, you know, you don't see why sometimes you'd have to buy a house. My statement is, okay, what's the alternative? So you're going to pay rent, which could be in excess of what you would spend on a mortgage, possibly.
Never.
Possibly.
Come on, realistically.
You could live with your family. That's an option.
Crufism.
You could
I don't
do
actually
that.
believe that, by the way, guys.
You could do that. It's not an option for many people like myself.
Yes, if you're married, yeah.
I'm a sort of orphan. I'm the only one in my family that lives in Jamaica.
Oh,
other
wow,
than, you know,
Okay.
my
Your immediate family,
my
yeah.
immediate family. So, I sold my mother's house and she migrated for her. I sold it for her 5 years ago and she migrated. So after that, there was no house for me to live in. So I was like, okay, I have to buy a house now.
And is that something that you do, generally?
What?
Or like, or
Buy
you
houses.
just because you were selling your mom's house?
No. I just my mom. See, I don't sell houses.
Okay.
No, it's just her house. So yeah, because she wasn't here, so I had to sell it for her.
Yeah, I just wanted you to say it because people would be.
Oh
DMing you
no!
asking
I
to
don't sell
yeah.
houses.
There
I'm
we
not a
go.
mortgage
Yeah.
officer. I can't help you to get a mortgage at all. I work in research.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the numbers, because you're saying the alternative on the mortgages,
Right.
which is what people
Which is-
generally think of when they don't run numbers. I think, well, I just rent, but
Yeah, if you rent, I have a rent versus buy calculator as well on my site. So you can pop up that calculator. That one is a little bit more technical. I assume a lot of things. I assume, rental prices are going to increase by 3% every year. Do you know that your landlord actually has the right to increase your rent by 7.5% every year?
Correct.
Many don't, but they have the right to. So that's something that you have to think about as well. So I put in the calculator, or I have a graph on my Twitter that shows what the 7.5% would be, what the 3% would be, versus what the mortgage would be, and versus what your income would be. And it kind of shows that, your rent can go up. Your mortgage would generally stay at a certain level and your income is going up. So as your income is going up, your rent is going up too. So the two of them going up together, you're not really feeling that cushion that you would have if you got the mortgage.
Exactly.
And you get a bigger cushion over time.
Definitely.
Over time. All right. So yeah, if you check out the rent versus buy calculator, you put in your assumptions about what you think is going to happen in the market. I put some in there as what I think may happen based on historic trends, 6 to 7% increase in home ownership or in home prices each year. But if you're buying pre-construction, it could be more. If you're buying a fixer-upper, it would be more. And yeah, so you put in those assumptions and it will actually give you a net present value. I don't want to get too complicated, but the net present value, not for you guys, but for everybody else.
no, it could be for us. But it's fine. Yeah.
And the net,
It's
if
a
the net
different
present
conversation.
value is
I will-
positive,
An inside joke about that. But continue.
if the net present value is positive, that means you're better off buying a home. If it's negative, that means you're better off taking the money that you would have used for the down payment and the fees and putting it in the stock market and or wherever and getting a better return. So the return that I used was the average return, and you guys can tell me if that assumption is wrong if you download it, but the average returns of the index, the main index over the last 10 years. Because in the scenario it was, you sell the house after 10 years, which one would be more beneficial? Renting for that 10 years or buying the house and selling it after 10 years. And in the case of the same $15 million mortgage we were talking about, given assumptions of what the index did over the past 10 years and what housing prices were on average over the past 10 years based on the data I could find, it was better to get the mortgage than to rent. Than paying the exact same $100,000 that you'd have spent on the mortgage or the rent. It would have been better to get the mortgage because over time you would have gained more in the increase in the house prices than taking that because you're deducting that $100,000 out of your the money that you'd have invested in the stock market every month. So that decreases at a rate faster than the equity in your house is increasing. So yeah. And that doesn't even include the fact that you could rent out a part of your house on Airbnb or whatever. You could get if you have like a 3-bedroom, you could rent out one of the rooms and get additional income from that. It didn't even include that. So if you could do that, home ownership beat renting. in that scenario. There are other scenarios it wouldn't work. If you can, I think it was 15% I used per annum that you could get from the stock market. If you can get more than I think the calculation was if you get more than 16%, then you'd be better off paying the rent.
Window.
That's very thin. So 15% to 16%. If you can, you get, and that would be nothing for you guys. But if the stock market could give you returns of more than 16%, or wherever you invest your money, not necessarily the stock market, but if you could get returns of more than 16% every year, it proved to be more beneficial in that scenario to rent. So you can decide for yourself if you're doing it for investment purposes, but if you, like me, had to put your family somewhere to live, you had to buy a house.
yeah. So for a lot of people, there's not even a choice. It's a
not
part
a
that we don't
choice.
talk about. They just have to live somewhere.
You have to live somewhere. So what are the options? If you need to pay rent and you're paying in excess of what our mortgage is, that's really the two comparisons. If you're paying in excess of what you would pay for in a mortgage, think about getting the home, buying the home. If you get over the hurdle of the down payment, and Randy and then I will tell you the best strategies to save up that down payment.
Boy, you have to invest in it, guys, because I did the same calculation always, the way I look at what the numbers show in terms of just the same deposit. $21 million house, $2.1 million deposit. So you double that, so you're looking at $4.2 million to get. If you can save 50 grand every month, it's going to take you 84 months. AKA 7 years.
7 years, wow.
7 years.
And that's without any interest increase.
And yeah, of course, this doesn't include any interest. And it doesn't include, so you can cut that down immediately by, imagine if you were DCAing in well, let's say you looked out last year or year before last and you were doing this every month, 50 grand in NCB stocks instead of a savings account, right? You'd cut the 7 years into 2 years or no time. Last year, by the end of 2019, you would, if you've been doing it 3 years before, you would have enough to make this deposit. Yeah.
Think about that, guys. That's really powerful stuff.
So generally, I think it's obvious that you can DCA, we call DCA dollar cost averaging. Simple version is you put the same amount of money into one company, regardless of the share price every month. So if you say, listen, I don't know much about the stocks thing, but I know NCB will always be around, and I save in for the next 5 years of my house deposit. Instead of putting it in a savings account at NCB, you can actually put it in NCB stocks, NCB shares. You can go to CapMax and get your account, and every month you put the $50,000 in NCB shares, regardless of the share price. So somebody's like, yeah, but it costs $200. No, that's not too much. It don't matter to you. You keep doing it because people did this at $6 and $5, and people did this at $10, and it's not that long ago. You could have gotten it for $50 5 years ago. Yeah, you could have gotten it. Yeah, you could have gotten it for $30.
Less than 50.
Less than, yes. It was at 14 and 15. I know it's at $200 per share.
Yep.
So if you're just saving and you pick one big solid company to do it every month, then you are probably going to beat the time that's needed. And it doesn't have to be stocks. If you don't know stocks, it can be fixed deposit.
Yeah.
It can be all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's not going to give you as high as a return to fixed deposit, but if you
gives you
invest somewhere safe or somewhere like a fixed deposit or in the stock market that you feel comfortable with, you can get to that 20%. And I think Kalila had mentioned it when she was here too, so I was really happy when she said that this is how you can get there. So
yeah, man. DCA,
thanks for inspiring the masses. So when back to deciding to buy a house now. All right, when you decide to buy a house, one of the first things, I mentioned a number of things already. One of the next things that you need to do is to get a pre-approval letter. The pre-approval letter is going to tell you what the bank will lend you conditionally. So it's not anything written in stone. They can't be held to it, but they'll tell you based on information you've provided, and that they'll ask for basic, your salary information, proof of employment, some basic things about you, whether or not you have an NHT benefit, etc. Because, if you do have an NHT benefit, I forgot to mention this, if you do have an NHT benefit, you don't have to go to NHT and apply for the loan and then go to the bank and apply for the loan. Okay. You can just go to the bank, and the bank has a relationship with NHT. The bank and the building societies have a relationship with NHT called the Joint Financing Mortgage Program. With that program, you can just apply one place, they collect the money, and they send it over to NHT. Or they'll process the entire loan and send what NHT needs to get to them. So you can access your NHT benefit by just going to one place. Okay,
so you just look for who have the best. So pretty much, guys, you want the easy way to figure it out. If the house you want costs more than, at this point, 5.5 or 6.5 million, then chances are you will have to go to a financial institution.
Right.
So you can go to one.
And you sort it out.
have a conversation with them, sort it out, and they will include NHD in your application, in your pre-approval.
Yeah, so your pre-approval letter will tell you what they'll lend to you, and then you can use that. And it's important to, when you're shopping around, that the sellers know that you're serious. A lot of developers and sellers will say, okay, how much can you qualify for? And if you show them this letter, it kind of say, okay, well, this person is serious. I can, you know, continue the process with them. All right, so when you actually decide to buy the home now, so you've decided, you're in the process of buying the home. So this is when you're now going to apply for the mortgage, you sign all the legal documents, etc. The first thing you do in this step is to contact a lawyer, because the lawyer will sign or will draft the sales agreement for you to sign, and you would pay the deposit to the person that's selling you the house through the lawyer. Some people try and get around this. They say they don't want to pay the lawyer fee, and it ends up hurting them in the end.
Sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes. Yeah. I won't say all the time, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry in this case. If you save for that 7 years or 5 years, and you have your $5 million ready to buy your house, and you just give it to somebody as a deposit, and you never hear from them again.
Yeah. So lawyers use like an escrow thing and their legal protection.
Right. Yeah. And if anything happens, you can get back your money. For whatever reason the sale falls through, you can get back your money. So that's why it's encouraged to use a lawyer.
I know people are saying, but you have to use a lawyer. So legally, you don't have to use a lawyer.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
you don't have to, but it is
Make sure you trust
highly recommended. Yeah. If your brother is selling it to you, even then, I would say still get a lawyer.
Especially if your brother is selling it. Shout out to my brother, who is not going to be selling me any property.
Oh, man. Yeah. So if you're buying a house now, let's talk about the fees. So you're going to pay some of the fees directly to the lawyer. That's the down payment. And there are a couple other fees that the government charges. But you're going to pay fees to the lawyer, you have to pay fees to the mortgage company, and you also have to pay fees to some third parties. The lawyer's fees includes the down payment and the government fees like the stamp duty and transfer tax. And that was a hot topic at the last budget debate in 2019 because it was reduced from 5% to 2%, the transfer tax, and the stamp duty was reduced from 2% to a flat fee of $2,500 each. So it's $5,000, $2,500 for the buyer, $2,500 for the seller. So that's a big deal, and that opened up access to home ownership for a lot of people. I can give you a clear example of why this makes a difference. When I was selling my mother's house, for example, say it was supposed to be sold for $20 million. When it came time to do the transfer, she found somebody to buy it. They were way into the process. It came time to do the transfer. The transfer went to be stamped at the tax office and transferred. And when they looked at the documents, they said, no, but this house is in XYZ area. It shouldn't be selling for $20 million. It should be selling for more than that. So they needed to do an independent valuation of the house. So they asked the lawyer for another valuation. The valuation that was done, because of the area that it was in, and I had an issue with the valuation company as well with this, the lawyer just sent through the valuation. It was for this, let's use $40 million for this example. So the tax office said, okay, well then the house is worth $40 million, not the 20 that it was being sold for. At that point in time, the sales agreement outlined that if that happens, because the sales agreement is that detailed, that it has that scenario because it has happened so many times. If that happens, if they're valuing it for higher than it's going to be sold, then the buyer and the seller have to split the difference in the cost.
So now they ended up with a fee that they weren't expecting.
They weren't expecting, and they canceled the sale.
Oh.
They canceled the sale because of it. So when I heard that they were reducing it, I felt so much joy because I said, you could have saved me a lot of stress. Because when they canceled that sale, but they had to start from scratch, real estate agent all over again to sell the house to somebody else.
I've been in that
It was painful because of the stamp duty and transfer tax. So it had a real application for me when it was reduced, and I'm sure many other people went through a similar situation where the fees were so high you couldn't even afford to sell your house.
Yep. Yeah. Big up the Catholic God for that. I want to ask a question that related to that. Have they started to edit those contracts now to say, like, if you break it outside of these situations, there's a penalty?
If the contract, the only thing I know that's typically in there, and I can go from my experience and a few other people that I know, the contract usually has clauses like, if it takes too long for you to go through the closing process, which is, getting the mortgage documents and doing all the paperwork, etc., then you are fined for that, or they have the right to cancel the sale. It usually has something like that included. It tries to cover as much as it can, but I think that's the only real thing. Like, if you can't get the mortgage, or for whatever reason, or if it goes outside of it's usually 45 to 60 days. If it goes outside of that window, then they have the right to cancel the sale and sell the property to somebody else. So, yeah, if you make sure that you have a lawyer that's different from the seller's lawyer, so that you guys can, you and your lawyer can sit down and really understand what's going on in this transaction, and your lawyer should sit down with you and explain the clauses and what can happen if you don't meet the agreement, the sales agreement. And you also pay them to make the sales agreement. You pay them, in general, 0.2% of the price of the house. So everything is a percentage of the price of the house except for the stamp duty. And all of these fees, the legal fees, transfer tax, the sales agreement, the fee to register the house, and as a seller, you would pay some real estate agent fees. As a buyer, you don't pay any real estate agent fees, only as a seller. So as a buyer, you don't have to pay anybody to find a house for you.
Does it help?
No, as in you can get a real estate agent, but you don't pay them. The seller is the one that pays them.
Pays the fees.
Yeah, a lot of people
I've always wondered about that. I wondered
Yeah,
about that.
A lot of people don't know
There's
that.
a specific piece of land I wanted to get, and I wondered if that would have helped me get it, because it went dead in a space where I'll tell you off here, and we'll edit this out. But yes,
Yeah.
that's good. So you mentioned the fees, and just for clarity, attorney fees, because I'm looking at the calculator.
Yeah.
3%. In
Yes.
general, but of course that's negotiable.
It is negotiable. So yeah, if you and your lawyer are bros and you guys can negotiate that fee down, then that's a possibility. But there are lawyer fees that you pay to your lawyer, but there are also legal fees that you pay to the mortgage company. So that's something that's a little bit confusing at times. I see legal fees over there, I see legal fees over here.
Okay.
So yeah, the mortgage company also has to go through a legal process, and they use lawyers to be able to close a transaction as well. So you have to pay for their lawyers as well, and you pay to register the sale of the house, and you pay to register the mortgage. So there are two registration fees as well, and there are two stamp duties as well. So you're paying to stamp the title, and you're also paying to stamp the mortgage on the title.
Wow. So guys, to simplify again, you can just download the calculator, which does break it all down for you. Yeah, because I know it's not your fault. It can be a complicated process, so this is great.
So I'm trying to simplify it, just so you have an idea of what to expect.
I'm looking at the calculator. It's good. It's simple. It's just you literally put in the amount that the house costs,
and you see a big percentage,
and everything else is spit out.
Yeah,
it tell you how much fees you are. I'm looking at one now. $10 million. If the house costs $10 million, total deposit plus fees $1.4 million. Yeah. So
not even the 20%. So the 20% is a cushion. So you might have some little additional things after that I can't contemplate in the calculator. So yeah, 14%.
That's not bad. That's something to say. Nobody planning them know. If you can buy a $10 million house, find 1.4.
Yeah. Easily. All right. So not so easily. So yeah, the mortgage will require a couple of things. The mortgage company will require a couple of things for you to be able to go through with the process. Other than the usual ID, proof of income, they have to be able to calculate that you can repay the loan. They'll ask for a list of your expenses and your debts, and a confirmation letter from NHT that you actually have been contributing and can access your NHT benefits. They'll ask for a copy of the sales agreement that you and your lawyer signed. They'll ask for two things. So I mentioned third-party fees. There are two things that you have to get done before the mortgage company will generally give you a mortgage, which is you have to value the property and you have to do a surveyor's report. Valuing the property, of course, you're trying to figure out if the property is really worth what you're buying it for. So I could tell you that the property is worth $30 million, but when they value it, they're like, no, this is worth $5 million. So the mortgage company wants to make sure that what you're getting for what you pay. You're getting what you pay for. Then the surveyor's report is something that tells you if the boundaries of your property are correct or if there are any breaches on the boundaries of your properties. Again, I've had practical experience with this. When the surveyor's report came back from my mother's property, it said that the fence was too far out. So they built the fence where the fence should have been like a meter back from where it was. And because of that, we had to get the property rebound. Instead of moving the fence, we took the option to rebound the property. And so a surveyor had to come, and then you have to file it to the land agency. It's a process. So something as simple as a fence being a little bit over the edge can completely derail your mortgage process. That's when the police pull you up on the highway on the way to the mortgage. So your boundary isn't correct. Or your neighbor is encroaching on your side, or there are other things that can happen if your boundary is not properly surveyed. So they need a report.
Find out for years.
You don't. Yes. So we were living in a house for 20 odd years, or 20 to 30 years, and never knew that the fence was too far out. So
that happened to me. It wasn't near my lines, was it?
No.
Oh, okay. It happened to me, but it was on the other way. Like they were on our land for years.
Yeah.
And the guy used to give me a hard time for being on his land. Oh God. I hope he's listening.
Right. So, and then they'll ask you to fill out some insurance forms. And somebody emailed me about this just the other day. Why do I need to get insurance for a mortgage? Generally, it's because the mortgage company wants to make sure if something happens to you, your mortgage can be repaid and your family is okay after your mortgage is repaid. Or if you have to get insurance for your life, and also for the property itself. There's an earthquake, hurricane, etc. The replacement value, the house should be able to be replaced reasonably. So you have to get insurance on the replacement value of the house. And then, of course, they'll pull a credit report on you as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite a process.
Yeah, it's quite a process. I have a little map in front of me here that shows you from the beginning when you're doing your research until you're ready to get the keys to your new home. So yeah, I did another very scientific Twitter poll that asked general users how long after they submitted the documents was the mortgage paid, and most persons said over 4 months. So after you submit all of those documents I just named, on average, 4 months. That's what most people said.
Wow.
There are some people that can get through it quickly, but you know, there's more than likely there's gonna be. Well, not that something will be wrong with one of your documents, but there's going to be some additional checks or additional information that they may require. So, yeah, it's a long road. When you actually own the home, if you're buying into a apartment complex or a townhouse complex, there is something called a strata. The Commission of Strata Corporations is who oversees all stratas. So even commercial complexes like plazas, they're a strata. So anywhere where there's a collective group of people that are living or owning property in one space and have a shared common area, they're called a strata. Right? So as an owner of an apartment or a townhouse, and that's one thing I want to tell anybody who is in the process of thinking of buying one or the other, you are obligated to pay maintenance fees. So when I say obligated, I mean obligated. They can sell your house if you don't pay.
Yes, because the law has been changed relatively recently.
They can sell your property. And I've actually had to go through this because I am on the board of my strata.
Wow.
So I know it firsthand.
And this is why people are physically still living in there.
Yeah,
but they're not paying their fees.
They're not paying their maintenance fees for whatever reason that they don't feel like they need to pay. They don't use the pool or they don't use the elevator. So I'm just for an example.
I think for a lot of people,
they don't use they don't see the gardener, so they're not paying him.
They're not paying. You think so? You know what I think it is for a lot of people, and this is me personally just guessing. I think it's the apartment cost 25. I scraped it together, don't have any and I got the 25, and I paid no attention to the fact that there's strata fees of
precisely
50 or 60, and it's told to you before you get in, and you just decide, listen, I buy my house, and then figure it out afterwards.
It's actually even in the sales agreements and some documentation that outlines that this is a requirement. And my lawyer, when I was buying my house, he sat down and he said, do you know what strata living is? And he gave me I had the opportunity to ask all the questions about strata living. I had no clue what it was. I was like, yeah, sure, I know what that is. And, you pay some fee, whatever. But you don't really understand until you're there and you're in there, and they named me as the treasurer for the board. So I collect all the maintenance and I made all the payments. I recently relinquished that rule because it was just too much for me. But it's a lot of work, and imagine. Especially if people don't want to pay or they feel like they don't need to pay, it really affects everybody else. So just bear that in mind. If you're buying into a strata, you're mandated to pay. Ask them ahead of time if you can. If it's a old property, you can ask them what the current maintenance is. It's easy to figure out, and you put it in your calculations. for me, I bought pre-construction, so it was a new property. We had no idea what the maintenance was gonna be. They gave us an estimate, but when reality hit, and everybody wanted 24-hour security or wanted XYZ, the gardener to come 6 days a week, things started to add up.
Yeah.
So
how does that get settled, by the way? Meetings and everybody
yes,
votes?
many meetings many meetings. And we go back and forth over it, and I did, I'm an Excel guru, so I have my Excel spreadsheets, and I show them, this is what it would cost if we have XYZ. I give them like 20 options. You guys pick one. Which one you want? You want 2 gardeners? You want 1 gardener? You want 24-hour security? You want armed security? You have different options, and we picked it. So when everybody decide on it, of course, not everybody's happy. Yeah, I could go on with that forever.
Oh, wow. I figure it's painful, but I think a lot of people know it and they don't get ever to hear about it. It's obviously not going into anything personal, but like, and of course, you're guessing average strata fee. Nice enough place, not armed guard 24 hours, but there's a man at the gate always, or a woman.
Well, okay, so how your fee is calculated? It's something called unit entitlement. So if I have and unit entitlement is something that's literally on the title of your property. So it's like it would say 5 out of 96. So everybody's property is collectively is 96 shares. Let's call it shares. 96 shares, and I have 5 shares out of the 96. So for the total proportion of expenses for the month, 5 divided by 96 times that total is what I have to pay.
Okay.
So it's something that's on your title. So if you see, look on your title if you have an apartment or a townhouse, and look for your unit entitlement, and then how it should be calculated. And I work closely with the strata persons who are close with the Strata Commission on this, to the property management company that recently took over my complex because I told them I was done with it. So they said that, they've seen cases where people weren't calculating the maintenance. They were just dividing it by the number of apartments, and that's not how it should be calculated. You have to do your unit entitlement because there are 3 bedrooms, there are 2 bedrooms, there are lofts, there are all sorts of different, square footages in everybody's apartment. So it's not an equal proportion. Everybody pays what their unit entitlement is. So it can be from, I know, like, I don't want to say the name of the unit, but there's something like Portmore and those areas that are paying $4,000 a month, and Old Harbor, I know my friend down there is paying like $10,000 a month. But in Kingston and St. Andrew, you're looking at $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month.
Yeah, I know people paying $100,000.
Yeah,
but of course, it's pretty premium.
If it's premium, right? It can go all the way up there. So for an older existing complex, you can pay 20 to 40 easily. And that would be like people with an elevator. It's so funny. I have a picture up here. It's on the Commissioner Strata Corporation's website. I actually used to live here, and there was an elevator and pool and everything, and it was, I think, about $37,000, $40,000 a month. So yeah, it can get very expensive. So if your mortgage is $140,000, you have another $40,000 expense. You have another $20,000 you're paying in insurance, and then the miscellaneous things that can pop up, like your tiles can start to lift, or your plumbing can go. It can happen. So yeah, that is a good segue into the cost of home ownership. So the cost of home ownership is
after you spend it, after you've graduated from Croft.
So you have your mortgage payment, of course. You have to think about your strata fees. There are the repair costs that I just mentioned. Then, of course, you have to sleep somewhere, and you have furniture and stuff. So you have to think about putting in all of those things yourself. Maybe you have something from where you were living before. If you're starting from scratch, then you might have to sleep on the floor for a while. No lattes for a long time.
We've been trying not to touch that since, but it's a serious thing. Yeah, because house broke is a real thing.
It's a real thing. You don't want to be too house broke. So, I mean, it's a sacrifice that you're making. I know people that, them struggle and them find the money and them going through the process, and they say, yes, I'm going to own my home. I don't have a problem eating sardine for the next 3 months or the next year. I have no problem with that. So it's something that you have to decide, am I willing to make that sacrifice for the long haul? And then, if you don't live in a gated community, you possibly have to think about the cost of security. As I mentioned before, the life and peril insurance, then property tax. So property tax, sometimes it's rolled up in the strata fees if you're in a strata, Other times you just go pay it yourself and you can pay it online, which I love, absolutely love. Big up TAJ for that. You can pay your property tax easily online. You can just go in, put in whatever your valuation number is and figure out what your property tax is and pay it easily. And you, of course, your utility bills as well. So you're responsible for all of that. So if you had any of those being paid for you when you were renting, make sure you think about all of these things when you decide to buy. All right. So, I mentioned this before. I'll just touch on it quickly again. That when you are repaying your loan, make sure that you can pay off as much of the principal as you can over time, because it helps to reduce the interest that you pay. So
and that's what I touched on before.
Yeah.
To say, pretty much is you're paying this lump sum. So any big payments you can make to that cuts down the overall payment.
And I have. Well, as mortgage interest rates have fallen since I first got my home, I've opted to not reduce my monthly payment. They asked me to reduce the monthly payment to reflect the reduction in interest, and I said I'd rather pay the same thing I was paying before, and they then shortened my loan. So the interest rate moved from 9 to 8.5, and my loan moved from closing in 2045 to 2037. So it took off 8 years off of the loan.
Shaved off.
Wow.
That's really nice.
Just for keeping the same payment that I was paying before the interest rate fell.
Wow.
So,
Smart move.
Yeah, that's a smart move. That's
Yeah.
the time value of
What
money.
Right, time value of money. All right, so there's another calculator on my site. It's called loan repayment schedule or amortization schedule. And what that will basically tell you, like any loan, how much you're paying in interest, how much you're paying in principal, and how the balance is being reduced over time. So as the Excel nerd that I am, I'll take up my spreadsheet every now and then and I'll look at my mortgage statement. I say, this is what my loan balance is supposed to be. This is what my mortgage statement is. And I compare the two and make sure that, everything is on the up and up in terms of what my loan balance should be. So
Have you ever seen it different?
There's one or two times where I did the same. Well, because I make a payment extra every month, they accumulate it over time and then they apply it at one point in time. So that was the only thing that I saw that, my calculator would have it coming out monthly, but they had it lump sum and that affects the interest that's calculated. So that's the only thing. But you can download the amortization schedule and put in the loan amount on the day that you start your loan, and then you can see how much you're going to pay in principal and interest over time. It's a bit scary to see that number.
Sometimes.
In the interest, the interest
but knowing
especially.
is always better.
Yeah, so, if you pay it off quicker, that interest number goes down, and then, you'd be in a better position. So, and this is a reducing balance loan. We can talk about other loan types, but most mortgages, if not all, should be reducing balance mortgages, which means over time, as you pay more, your balance is going down. Right. So.
Well, I like though also, while you say it's all of that, I should tell people it's not just, it's any loan. It works for any loan.
Any loan.
Yeah, car loan, house loan, any loan. Literally, if you have a loan you want to go to work, she has a great calculator that works locally and it works in Excel.
Anywhere in the world, there are other loan types. This is for a reducing balance loan. There are some lenders, micro lenders primarily, that have other methods of calculating interest, like add-on. So those methods would be different. So you'd have to, if you're using this for a typical mortgage or a car loan, etc., it should be a reducing balance loan, so it should work.
Well, what I will tell people is that if anybody's giving you a loan in 2019 or 2020 and it's add-on, do not take it. Yeah, you should not be taking it. Yeah, you shouldn't. I will tell you that personally. And I'm vexed because I used to pay students' loan back when it was add-on. I was supposed to pay.
Yeah, they changed it to reducing balance because
eventually, I paid it off before that though. So my entire loan did with add-on.
Sorry about that.
Well, it's all right, contributed to national development.
Of course, and helped other students get their education.
Yeah, and I left it unpaid for a long time.
Oh my!
I probably shouldn't say that. I'll say it is the truth. I don't care. I don't like SLB. I didn't like what SLB was. I like what they're becoming now. So big up SLB now. Okay. But I still vex over my years of it. I'm sorry. I know I sound bitter, guys. I should have left it in the last year, but I didn't. Anyway.
All right. Yeah, 2020. So NHT, I didn't mention your NHT refund.
Yes, that's a big thing. I was waiting for you to get there because that's the one I wanted to talk about. Because everybody listening to this right now, as long as you've been investing not investing, I'm saying investing. Although it is an investment.
Yes.
As long as you've been paying NHTs for the last
7 years.
Isn't it 8 now? Then they move it up?
They're probably, I'd have to double check. But as far as I remember, it's every 7 years. So if you started paying, well, whichever one it is, 7 or 8 years ago, then if that means if you started working and they started to take NHT deductions out of your salary. So check your pay slip for 7 or 8 years ago and see if you were making contributions to NHT.
Yeah, but it's the confusion I get, just to cut you there, is in the eighth year.
Right.
So the 8th year after the contribution was made.
Right.
So if you made it in, and the example I'm reading actually from NHT's website here, so they say if you have contributed to the NHT in 2011, you can know, and now would have been 2019. So now you're hearing this in 2020. So if you've paid NHT up to 2012, then you can apply for a refund now. So you can check back if you have the old numbers or you don't know. Well, they have it on site, and I have. Well, there'll be a link in the show notes. I'm sure if you see this through a tweet, I'll have a link there too. But it's about the NHT refund. So
right. So it's very easy to apply for. I've done it many times. You can just go on the site and put in your NIS number, your TRN number, basic information, and they ask you where do you want them to send your money.
Pretty much.
Which bank do you want them to send your money to? And you just get a refund of the contributions that you made that year. So if your NHT benefit is available and can be sent to your bank, or I think they even have some money transfer options there.
All sorts of things. Even if you're overseas, you can get it.
Yes. So I've known persons overseas that have applied for their benefits and it went to their bank account.
Send it to your brokerage account, your bank
Wherever.
account, anything.
Yeah. So use it wisely, and we can put it towards your payment for your house. NHT also has something interesting. I forgot to mention this as well, that you can actually help to finance some of the costs. They have a benefit. I don't remember how exactly you apply, and maybe I can look at this afterwards. But you can finance some of the fees. They have a special either grant or a low interest way to finance some of your housing fees. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, but they do have that as well. So that's something that you can consider if you're going directly to NHT to apply for the loan. So yeah, NHT has some great benefits. You should definitely check them out if you're thinking about buying a home and you do have access to their benefits.
Okay,
Right.
well, I like that. And it is pretty simple. I'm looking at it myself
It's
here.
so
Literally,
easy
like you say, your
to
name, your
fill
address,
out.
your stuff.
Yeah.
And they send you, it's probably one of the better run government processes,
Yep.
actually, because you can do it all from your phone. They send you a text when you get the
Yes,
refund. Matter of
when
fact, it's
it's
the first set of
there.
people I see sometimes send you the money first and then send you the text
Afterwards,
Yeah,
I see,
because the money
yeah.
get there so quickly.
It is
Yeah.
rapid.
So if you're listening to this right now, you can apply immediately. The link is in the show notes. You can go and apply.
You actually have to wait, I think, till the first of they open it at midnight
January
on
1.
January 1.
And
right?
everybody's hearing this.
Yes.
January 1, because this
Yes.
drops January 1. Happy New Year again, guys.
Happy New Year.
We made it.
Happy New Year, bro.
Yes. Happy New Year. Cheers. So that's basically it about the journey towards owning a home. Do your research, use your calculators, figure out how much it's going to cost. The financial consideration is one. There are other emotional considerations and lifestyle considerations. Do you want the stability of a home? Do you want the responsibility of buying a home, because it's a large chunk of money that's coming out of your salary? Are you going to be able to maintain that over time? And the bank generally won't lend to you if they think that you have shown evidence that your credit is bad or you're not very good at repaying your loan on time, because it's a contractual agreement not only to repay but to repay when you say you're going to repay. So you're repaying at the end of the month, not you're making a lump sum payment once a year. You might think that it's cool, but that's affecting your credit report, and it's also affecting your contractual arrangement with the bank. So it doesn't augur in your favor to pay when you feel like. So do you have the commitment to be able to pay it monthly? Do you have the responsibility of owning a home and taking care of everything yourself?
Yes.
Versus
which
having
can
a
be a real
landlord.
thing. Yeah, you'd have a landlord to call because the pipe broke. You are the landlord.
You
right?
are the landlord.
it's
So
rough.
you call that plumber and get to work yourself. One or the other.
All right. So I don't know if I can pop it and make it a little bit more
Go for it.
real life for the people now, because I want to tie the two things in. And you have skillfully avoided talking about stocks the entire time, which we don't mind. We actually don't mind. It's a nice little break and it's great information, but I'm going to have to kind of pinch you on it a little bit, because you've listened and You're not avoiding it at all.
Not at all.
Oh God.
Not at all. I work for a company that is not publicly traded. So I know you guys are total, that's your life, but you know, I'm kind of on the periphery of things. I learn it from my own, you know, little research, and I come across things related to, you know, going deep into companies, not as frequently as you would, I'll put it that way. So, I mean, yeah, I have some basic feelings about stocks, but I'm definitely not the gurus that you guys are.
No, that's the beauty of it. That's why we don't need the gurus. I mean, I know Danai is a guru, but I do know, however, is that you do have people who are just like you. That's what I like, because there are people who, and for whom they have different goals.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people have the expectation. I guess it's natural. Danai and I, like, we're deep into it, we're on it to the market. You'd be very, very, very surprised how very real. That's why we always try to. Well, you've listened, so you know we link things back to real life. You don't need to be any grand expert. It's very, very, very simple. What I want to tag you to is this, because I've always tried to speak about in real terms. You get a lump sum. What do you do with it? And one of the lump sums that you get, if you're working obviously long enough, start of the year during the first month of January, or the first of the 3 months of January, you can get your NHD refund. So if you apply very early in the year, you can get it sometimes at the end of the first week. So in the second week, you can get it the third week. So imagine someone gets that, and obviously you're definitely not a financial advisor, but they're thinking, I'm going to throw this towards my house deposit fund.
Yeah.
Which company would you like them to throw it to? Which one would you? Put yourself in those shoes, just starting out.
All right. I'm going to spin it a little bit. I'm going to put it in my shoes, sort of, but I'm going to spin it. Because I'm here talking about mortgages, I'm going to spin it and say, let's invest in a company that does some sort of real estate investing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I like that.
So my picks then, there are a few of them out there, and I know some of them were mentioned the last time, but I'll tell you about them again. There's 138 Student Living. They have a real estate investment arm to them.
Yeah, they're almost all real estate.
Yeah.
But focus to was like college and short-term rentals. Yeah.
So you can think about them like that. Pulse,
heavily real estate,
Pulse.
more commercial and hotel driven.
Touching
residential now.
Panjam, they're real estate
Definitely.
as well.
OG, commercial real estate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're
Doing it
thinking
right.
about investing in a stock that's related to mortgages or real estate, those are my three. that you
Strong
can
picks,
consider.
actually.
I like those picks, yeah.
Yes. So
And she didn't reach out, I want to say this. She didn't reach out and just choose Peart
okay,
over there.
right. So I've actually been looking at them, and I decided to go with those three.
I think he chose the better ones.
he chose those ones, yeah.
Wow.
Jamaica Producers technically is also a
yes.
real estate
Yes.
one, yeah.
So you could tell me more about them.
Yeah,
You guys are the
yeah.
experts. Tell me more about the real estate ones so I can
No,
try
just
them.
it's always a cheat code whenever you want some Cape Reeds,
Not KW.
not KW. You want some KW
Yes.
without, because I'm sure I think of Cape Reeds and KW very similarly,
Okay.
even though I shouldn't, but that's a personal thing. So you want some of that exposure without going directly, so you go through the big boys.
Yes.
And I mean,
Stanley Mata.
Stanley Motor, yeah.
I like them, but I don't know if they're expanding heavily.
Yeah. It seems like the 58 half tree, I think they kind of feel like they're stuck there.
Yeah, although there's a lot of long-term things to go there. So we pressure you on that. I don't know if you want to do, if there's anything else you want to tag on. I like to talk about it from Danai's perspective, because Danai is younger, and he'd be like the mid-20s looking for something like, so how would make it very real for him. Especially
Okay.
people like Danai, his age stage.
This is Adulting 101 episode.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
Everybody in my generation, I hate using that one. But everybody in my generation is talking, Adulting 101, we don't know where to look for a mortgage. You don't know the first step going forward into it. So I think this really talks to a lot of people.
Okay. Well,
You have a
I'm
very
glad.
good audience.
Oh, that's good. Good
And
to hear.
the
I hope even
numbers.
one person is inspired.
More
Even
than one, and the calculator. Remember, long before anybody buys, I'm assuming, but long before anybody buys a home, they calculated 10,000 times already and what them can get and what them kind of can get
Yeah.
and how it goes. Because for some people, it's a real dream, and I can understand it.
Yes.
The comfort. I want to own my own home. Yeah, just
Yeah, that deposit.
Pricey, boy.
Yeah, I made these calculators way before I even thought about buying a house. I had them and put them in there and looked at my dream and said, okay, where do I need to be? And it really does help. I mean, not saying that you must shack up with anybody to buy a house, but it really does help having somebody else with that NHT benefits, and you can see the scale, the economic
Giant
scale.
pints.
What's that?
Giant pints.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
I mean, that was one of the things that helped me to realize my dream of home ownership, because I had access to mortgage benefits and NHT benefits, and I never thought it was possible. Never
It's
thought.
still pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I bought my first house before I was 30.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the deposit convinced Randy that he's never getting one. At this point, he's talking about getting one. So
yeah.
did it work? Did my goal work of switching your?
I am definitely
Right.
considering the best mortgage. I can tell you that.
Great.
I can tell you that. I don't want to overshadow what you just said, because it's a big talk to just make quietly. Say it again. You own your first home.
Yeah, before I was 30. I was 29.
Flex.
But yeah.
Flex.
No, and I felt like I was late to the game, because there are people, in my office that were buying their houses at 25 easily, or lower 20s easily, and that was when rates were higher. So they
So
were my
those people are-
inspiration, and the key was buying outside of Kingston, of course. But
Yeah.
they were my inspiration. Like, okay, you have the benefit, so
Use it up.
use it.
up.
Yeah. I like that. I really like that. And if you don't have the benefit, I mean, you can, to quote, again, the latte boss, I think he said, one of the things that I would say
Yeah.
that he pointed out that what overshadows, he said that when he bought his very first house, it was very, very hard. And he said every single time since then that he's bought a house, it's never been easy. So I think it's just one of those life choices that you make, and
Yeah.
it's understood that when you're making it, it's going to be a bit
It's going to
painful.
be rough.
But it's one of those things that it forces you to think long term. It forces you to think. In 10 years, you look back and you go, I'm glad I did it. But it was rough when I was doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And even people who trade up, so that in this and they sell and they move to something bigger, it's still hard, that trade up.
It is hard. Yeah. I'm 5 years into buying my house. It's 5 years now. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years. And it's just now kind of, okay, the rocky part is just kind of dying down. Just because it was rough, those first couple of years.
Oh, wow. I wonder what's going to happen when you buy your house. How it's going to go? Because I think about the prices skate like this in the last 10 years, going back to the same ad. $20-odd million house in Norbrook now, easily 60, 70 mil
60.
for the same space.
Yeah, so you asked me, I mean, I don't know if you have a lot of time left. You asked me if I thought we were in a bubble.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So that's also off here, that's another question. Because that's the question people always want to know. What do you think about the whole heap of house I'm going to go up?
And my answer
And
to
them
that...
empty.
Yeah, it's... In Kingston, that's the reality. House prices are going up because the demand is increasing and the supply is not increasing as fast. Houses, specifically. There's an article that came out in July that said the apartments, there are like thousands of vacant apartments out there. Not sure
How strong
how
the
strong it
basis
is,
for those numbers
because
were, yeah.
if you then look at Proven the other day, they had their apartment going on sale, and by the time you could say where's my latte, it was finished. So I mean, there are contradicting things out there that will intimate that there are apartments that are available for sale easily, and the reality in me looking for a house, I don't want an apartment. I'm looking for a house, and it's not possible to find a house in any of the areas that I'm looking in that's near to my office. And my criteria is very minimum, near to my office. Like, I'm just looking for somewhere that's near to my office and in a safe community. That's as best as I can go for criteria. And it's kind of hard in my price range, of course. That's another thing. The price, near to my office, and safe community. So
bubble.
Yeah, I don't think there is a bubble, but I think prices in Kingston are getting high.
So
There-
maybe Kingston is in the bubble. Maybe the bubble is Kingston.
Maybe.
No, it's a-
But let me go back to the economic theory of a bubble. What the economists say define a bubble is there is no good reason to justify the price increase. Is there no good reason? I don't know, but the reason that I propose is that the demand is so high that you can command whatever you want for a apartment or a house, and you can get it because of things like Airbnb and investment, and people are looking for investments, whether or not it be in stocks or real estate. And a lot of the people feel like real estate is safer. Like a pension fund can't necessarily invest all of their money in stocks. They have to go to
They legally
safer,
have to
right?
put a
have
certain
to.
amount in
Right.
safer
So they are
securities,
looking
yeah.
into real estate. So I know that some of them battle over some of these high price properties because they need to get the returns for their pensioners. So is there a justification for the price increase? I think so, that the demand is just so high. Outside of Kingston, prices are, I won't say they're good, but they're more reasonable than in Kingston. So if there is a bubble in Kingston, it would also be defined by people not being able to afford mortgages that they get already. So they already have the mortgage and they can't afford it anymore. And then the defaults begin to increase. That's what the economic theory says in terms of defining a bubble. I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen any evidence of defaults increasing at high levels. To give you an example, in America now, in the heights of the crisis in 2010, where they had their last housing bubble, which as you know is caused by the mortgage crisis there. Default rates were 1 in every 20 homes. Right. Now, today, or last year, 2018, 2019, default rates were 1 in every 265 homes. So the default rates have gone down there, even though their housing index, the same index I was talking about earlier, shows that houses are now at the same level as they were right before the crisis in 2008. The index is at the exact same place right before it came back down. So they think that America might be in a bubble. A lot of the economists that I've been following, they think that America's housing might be in a bubble because of that. And another thing that defines a bubble is if the banks stop lending, which they definitely have not, and if the banks start to lend with questionable credit practices.
Yes, the basis for it. The repaying person has to be able to.
Right.
There we go, yeah.
So like the housing crisis in 2008, as you know, was sparked by, I'm buying a house. I'm a waitress. I'm going to Bank of Randy to buy my house. Bank of Randy says, sure, I'll give you a mortgage. I don't care if you're a waitress. I'm borrowing $1 million even though I'm making minimum wage, $1 million US, even though I'm making minimum wage. What I'll do is I'll give you a little introductory rate. I'll give you a little 3%. But by next year, it's going to double. It's going to be 6%. And then after that, because the interest rate is variable, it's going to go up to about 10%. So by next year, I can't afford my payment. It doesn't even take long, 1 year. And they did that to many people. So Bank of Randy did that to many people. Then Bank of Danai came and bought because so you could do that to me because you're not taking on any risk because you're going to resell my mortgage to Bank of Danai or Investment Bank Danai.
Within that 1 year period, so I repackage it.
You repackage it.
But I don't call it that. I repackage all of them together.
Right.
I put under something. I call it a bond.
Right.
Yeah. I get the average credit rating. Yeah. I realize if I put like maybe say 10,000 people in one bundle, if I put 50 high credit people in there, it raises the average credit rating up to a certain amount, and I can sell it as a derivative of that, which is where the derivative comes from, and I sell that to you at market rate.
Right.
Because I already know that the thing that's inside it is only going to be market rate for 12 months, and the time is ticking. As long as I don't hold it when you have it.
For 12 months.
So
you've gotten rid of your risk. You now have some risk. But I have the most because I bought this house that I can't afford. So I'm going to default, and everybody else in my portfolio is going to default as well. Everybody else that you sold it to.
Yeah, 90%.
So that happened because the banks themselves were not taking on the risk and they were writing these risky mortgages. In Jamaica, I can tell you that's not happening. There is no bank writing any risk that they don't know that they are going to accept that risk.
Yeah, they're quite risk averse.
We are so risk averse. So even the financial crisis of 2008, it impacted us, yes, but not in the way that impacted in the States because we don't have collateralized debt obligations and mortgage-backed securities, which is what all these investment banks were doing with mortgages. So risky lending practices, I would say categorically no, because it's tough to get a mortgage. You saw the data on that.
Yeah. So that's the answer to, are you worried about a crash?
Right, no. If those are the reasons that determine a crash, I'm not worried about many of those. Kingston, the prices are high, yes. I can think of a reason why.
And understanding also the crash was on one level.
No.
Because the system is designed for people to be able to not pay their mortgages. The land is still there, so you still hold it. A large part of what impacted in America was the fact that also those things were insured at that value.
Right.
When it failed and you can't pay it, you call on your insurance. And insurance suddenly had a sector that is calling on them, and they literally cannot pay all of them. And that insurance company is tied into all these indices. And when that index now has this insurance company that has to go default, the index is going to crash. And we have our pensions in products that are in that index. And that's how a crash happens. In Jamaica, we have poverty as a protection. We just literally didn't have those tools yet.
We don't have it.
And then other people crashed and we learned from them. So we build protections around it.
And do you think I'm switching it up a little bit? Do you think that's why we don't see that many derivatives out here?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
we're more risk averse in terms
And I think
of that.
it's because the way the money that's in the system, we don't have a requirement for derivatives. Like, so the US, they'll have there's more money following the stock market
Yes.
than there's actual money in the stock market.
Yeah.
So
They
we
have a
don't
long
need
tail.
them.
They have a
Got
long
you.
tail.
So we have derivatives that's tracking this. So in here, the money is directly in a pension fund that's directly in that stock. So
Many times, not many derivatives. It's very new. I think actually we just have a derivative technically in.
The short sale?
No.
Oh, no, that's not a
No,
sorry.
man. We have, what's that company that's listed? The Canadian.
the equity line.
Mortgage,
yes. But
equity
it's not
line.
but it's not
But it's
all
not-
the underlying it's in Canada.
Okay,
Underlying.
but
But
you
it's
can
still all
trade
money. But
the...
it's all money invested in the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is
Yeah.
quite a little bit of a derivative, yeah. But locally none. Partially because I think we tend to worry about the complexity of it.
The
I
complexity.
think, yeah.
So I was going to tell us, I can tell a little story about that. You know, you have to study derivatives to do actuarial science, which is what I did. And the second exam is called financial math, and it's divided into two parts, which is theory of interest and derivatives. Derivatives were foreign to me when I first took that exam in 2008. I had no clue. I've never heard of a derivative. I don't know what it is. Some people listening probably don't even have a clue what we're talking about. So derivatives are like, I'm betting. So you have a stock, Randy, and I'm going to bet that your stock is going to go up. So, or I'm going to bet that Randy's company stock is going to go up. So that bet is called, that's a type of derivative, right?
yeah.
So when I was learning about it, I actually failed that exam because I had no clue. I had no context. I'd never heard of it. And still, I don't want to date myself. Over 10 years later.
It's still hard to
Over
to
10
get.
years later, I still, like, there's some really complex ones, butterfly calls, your calls, the puts, etc., butterfly spread. So it's still not a thing in Jamaica. And even though I understand them now, it's just like, do you think that we're going to get there eventually? I know they're really complex, but I think we're smart people. We can figure out some of them.
Yeah, all right. In terms of smartness, financially, we have very sensible people here, and even on the local market, we've seen people who have done things that show that they understand the rules.
Okay. Is there a
It's
market
very.
for
It's,
it?
I want to be very careful when I say it,
Yeah.
because there's financial creativity, but we don't like the term because that sounds like
it
something
sounds
fraud.
like
I'm not
some
talking about that.
Ponzi scheme type of
But in
thing.
terms of true legal on the books financial creativity, we have people here who are very, very, very genius
Very
level.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I am. Your tweets of me talking about when MJE had their prospectus, how much I love that document. Yeah, there are people here capable of writing things that are very, very good, and I don't think that that's going to be a bad. I think we just had the first steps.
Yeah.
We have we've seen, speaking of MJE, we've seen funds. So technically, a fund is a derivative because so like MJE would be the effect of all of these stocks held together. So that's technically a derivative. Just to add to your thing earlier, when you said that, so suppose there's Randy Corp and you're taking a derivative is taking a bet on the movement of my stock. But it's important to note that it's taking a bet on the movement of my stock without necessarily owning my
Owning it,
stock
right, so you
directly.
don't have any
underlying.
ownership.
Yeah.
There's no
Which is a part of why the whole mortgage crisis ensued, because that was a derivative and nobody had any ownership
and
of
they had
that
derivatives and
instrument.
derivatives on top of
There were
it.
derivatives,
man. On
the
top of
varying
derivatives, yeah,
it was
man.
so complex that even the ratings agencies couldn't understand them, which is why they rated them AAA.
Yeah, because what they do is they reach a point that you're comfortable. You go to the back and you say, "What's this? Is Lehman? We know Lehman. They're a
Yeah.
AAA rating company. We send it forward."
And it's
Lehman knows that
mortgages. It's
under
mortgages.
which is
safe
why
bet.
there's a Big Short, guys. If you don't understand this, watch a movie called The Big Short.
love
It
that
looks
movie.
boring, but
Same.
it is one of the best
Best
movies
movies.
I have
Michael
ever
Dr.
watched.
Murray.
It is
Dr.
amazing, and that guy's a multi-billionaire as a
So
result of that.
I was watching something on him this week, and he said that he thinks that
The next
ETFs
Are the
Yes.
next thing.
are
So
the
that's what I was
next.
talking about.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast because we that
The same thing
we're going
with
to have to
more-
bring you back. We're going to have to
more
bring
money,
you
more
back
money's on the stock market than
in the
than
stock
in-
market. Yeah.
yeah.
So we pay attention to
something
stuff
goes bad
like
here,
that.
then
Everything else.
cascading effect.
Yeah, and what happens oftentimes is in the industry you're paying attention to the glitzy part here, but we're looking at the ground. We're going, which is what he was doing also. We're saying, this waitress cannot afford this mortgage.
No.
She's flipping houses, and 3 of them just failed on her. She doesn't have the capital to cover that.
No.
And there's 10,000 of her just in this area.
Right?
And this is all that's behind it. Everybody's like, that's rubbish. That
Rubbish.
don't make sense. So he says,
got
cool.
it.
I'm going to take a short, which is a bet where you gain when the share price falls. So I'm going to take a short against mortgages, which in America is considered crazy
Yes.
because housing never stops.
Never goes down.
long story short, I'll tell you this: he's controlling people's money. Those people that he's controlling, when they found out what he was doing, they thought he's crazy. They selling me. They tried to sue him to get back the money.
What was
but
the return at the end again?
480-something%, I think.
Yeah, some ridiculous.
some
In the US.
ridiculous thing in US dollars.
Yeah.
And those people that were trying to sue him are the people who got grained it. But he has a clause where he says, as a manager, I can choose to just
whatever you want.
ignore you. And he chose to do that. And while they're suing him, some of them became, well, they're already, these aren't poor people. They're multi-billionaires, millionaires, billionaires. And they became rich as a result of what he was doing.
Because of what he was doing,
Yeah.
yep.
So that's why there people care about the Big Short. That was a Big Short. And that's why people care about the understanding of a bubble, because a bubble can mean your pension drop because of something you didn't understand. That's why we ball about the market. But I don't want to run it too long, but I realize I'm going to have to carry you back. And I'm going, there's such a font of knowledge with her. Yeah, because we thought we thought of you coming here. We knew you obviously, I know the Excel stuff and I know you understand mortgages, but I realize we're probably going to carry you back a couple of times if you're willing throughout the year to speak on specific things.
Yeah.
Especially like the whole of things, because I know people hear the numbers and they like it. A lot of people want to know the whole
How.
and the realistic stuff. And I like that. And it'd be good for us this year to talk more about mortgages and housing and realistic stuff that you can do to find the mix between stocks and housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Invest to get your house.
Figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you indeed.
I don't. Well, would like to give you a moment to say whatever you want to. So it's like your chance to put your message out there.
Oh,
Anything you want to tell the people, you can tell them you follow. You can tell them to follow you at
Oh,
your
definitely.
website. Definitely.
Follow me on Twitter
At
MSGILLYJ, Miss Jilly J.
and of course your website.
And my website, financialsensibility.com. That's
There-
CENTSIBILTY.
Of course, and I will also have that in the show notes. I will also have a link to the accompanying blog post, which is where I just talk about how to get your NHG refund. It's just a quick guide through the process, so you guys should like it. I hope this has been informative for you. I've been Randy Rowe at RT Rowe,
And I'm Danai at H Danai.
and this has been earnings season. Thank you very much.
Thank you.